They remember the exact moment they made the fatal mistake. Sitting among friends, everyone buzzing with opinions about your relationship status, your dating choices, your sexuality. This person leaned in, absorbing every word they said about you. The group analyzed your texts, dissected your dating history, and speculated about your most intimate moments. They had theories about who you should be with, judgments about how you expressed yourself, and endless commentary about your sexuality. Their fascination with your personal life seemed almost obsessive. Instead of maintaining boundaries, this person allowed themselves to be influenced by the group's collective voice. They started viewing you through the lens of others' perceptions, letting gossip and speculation cloud their judgment. What began as casual interest evolved into inappropriate investment in aspects of your life that were never their business. Now, faced with the consequences of their actions, they're consumed by regret. They see how wrong it was to participate in those conversations, to listen to people who treated your love life and sexuality like entertainment. This person wishes they had shut down those discussions instead of being an eager participant in something that was never theirs to discuss. They weren't your friend. They weren't in your close circle. But they knew of you. Maybe through mutual friends, maybe through overlapping spaces, maybe through the quiet whispers that travel faster than truth. From a distance they watched, studied, crafted silent narratives about you without ever asking for your version. They didn't need proximity to develop fascination, just pieces of you that slipped through cracks, handed over by others who never should have spoken on your name. This person harbored questions about you that turned into fantasies. They constructed entire emotional storylines based on things they heard, things they assumed, things they projected. They let gossip become gospel. They let other people's voices build the architecture of their perception. And what they built wasn't real. It was a shrine to an illusion, painted with their own insecurities and misled admiration. Everything they thought about you was once filtered through contaminated sources. Friends warned them you were transactional. Someone called you manipulative. They were told you used your allure like a weapon, that you moved with intention only when it served you. And because they were already intrigued, already pulled into your gravitational field, those words sunk deeper. They didn't realize it then, but they weren't thinking for themselves. They were seduced by second-hand stories and tainted by the resentment others carried toward your power. Still, something within them refused to let go. Despite the warnings, despite the judgment, they couldn't stop thinking about you. Their fixation grew in silence, unspoken but deeply felt. It wasn't just attraction, it was curiosity wrapped in longing, paired with a growing suspicion that everything they'd been told about you wasn't quite right. This wasn't about love, not yet. It was about the pull, the way your presence lingered in rooms you hadn't entered, the way your name made their heart shift, even if they pretended it didn't. They watched from afar, craving clarity, craving truth. But instead of reaching out, they clung to distance. They stayed hidden behind their assumptions, afraid that getting too close would either confirm the worst or change everything they thought they knew. They didn't form those opinions on their own. Someone placed them there, subtly, skillfully, with the kind of manipulation that wears the mask of care. There was a person in their circle, always nearby, always commenting just a bit too much. When your name came up, this wasn't open jealousy, it wasn't loud, it was quiet, surgical. Disguised as just looking out, this person planted seeds of doubt and suspicion, like they were doing them a favor. They spoke in riddles, with concern-soaked undertones. "I just don't want you to get hurt," they said. "There's something about them I don't trust." But their concern wasn't neutral, it was poisoned. You were framed as dangerous, as cunning, as someone who used others for pleasure or clout, discarding people like accessories once they'd served their purpose. And the worst part? They believed it, not because they wanted to, but because the story fit neatly into their fear. It offered an explanation for the tension they felt, for the way you stirred something inside them they didn't understand. And so they grabbed onto it like a lifeline. You became a cautionary tale, not a person. That third-party influence had no love for you. They were in silent competition, either with you or with the idea of what you could awaken in the one they were whispering to. Maybe they were threatened by your magnetism. Maybe they feared what your presence would expose. So they spun tales dressed in honesty and pretended they were offering protection. And your admirer, conflicted and insecure, bought into it, not fully but enough. They began to filter every thought of you through a lens of suspicion. If you posted something bold, they saw it as calculated. If you were distant, they called it cold. If you were kind, they questioned your motive. They misread your power as manipulation and your silence as arrogance. They never considered that the traits others painted as negative were the exact qualities that protected you from chaos. Over time, their internal dialogue twisted. What began as intrigue was now a confusing mix of desire and distrust. They tried to rationalize their feelings, asking themselves why they felt drawn to someone who, according to everyone else, should have been avoided. But no matter how many warnings they heard, they couldn't detach from the pull. There was always a voice inside them whispering, "You're not seeing the whole truth." What they didn't know then, but are starting to now, is that the competition wasn't about love. It was about energy, power, light. The kind of light you carry that makes people uncomfortable. The kind of authenticity that others try to distort because it reveals what they themselves lack. That's what triggered the lies, that's what fed the illusion. And they, your admirer, had to learn the hard way that truth cannot be outsourced. It has to be felt. It has to be chosen. It happened slowly, almost imperceptibly at first. A dull ache in their spirit that wouldn't go away. A quiet dissonance between what they were told and what they actually felt. They began noticing the cracks, the contradictions, the venom, hiding beneath the so-called guidance. One by one, the voices around them began to lose their power. The people who once felt like allies began to feel like distractions. Their laughter became hollow, their advice self-serving. The illusion started to collapse, and in its place grew a strange clarity. They had never really known you, but they had let others convince them they did. The breaking point came when they finally asked themselves, why do they care so much about someone who isn't even here? That single question shattered the entire narrative. It forced them to reckon with the truth that their so-called support system had been projecting their own fears and jealousies onto you, and they had. Played along willingly, but not anymore. Now I want to take a moment to tell you about a few individuals that shouldn't exist. A trained occultist who escaped from a satanic coven. A former Black Ops drone pilot who flew swarms with his mind. A multi-millionaire psychic CFO who predicted market shifts before they happened. What do these remarkable individuals have in common? You'll find them all in the Obsidian Inner Order, where they share their forbidden knowledge on our private Discord server. My chosen soul has drunk deep from the well of knowledge, aeon after aeon. In this incarnation, these extraordinary individuals became my allies in the Obsidian Inner Order. They recognized the call. They stepped forward. They connected with others who understand their unique gifts and burdens. What is stopping you from manifesting the same? The synchronicities that brought them here weren't accidents. Neither is your discovery of this message. When souls of this caliber gather, the Archons take notice. They fear our collective power. They know what happens when the truly awakened find each other. Join our weekly calls. Hear their stories firsthand. Share your own journey with those who won't dismiss or doubt you. The knowledge exchanged in our private channels cannot be found anywhere else on this plane. Click the link in the description below now. The extraordinary souls await your arrival. The question isn't whether you belong among them. The question is, how much longer will you wait to claim your place? The separation began in silence, a slow withdrawal from the noise. They stopped engaging in the conversations. They stopped laughing at the jabs. They distanced themselves, not just from the people, but from the energy that once made it easy to misjudge you. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't loud. It was sacred. They were shedding their skin. When souls of this caliber gather, the Archons take notice. They fear our collective power. They know what happens when the truly awakened find each other. Join our weekly calls. Hear their stories firsthand. Share your own journey with those who won't dismiss or doubt you. The knowledge exchanged in our private channels cannot be found anywhere else on this plane. Click the link in the description below now. The extraordinary souls await your arrival. The question isn't whether you belong among them. The question is, how much longer will you wait to claim your place? The separation began in silence, a slow withdrawal from the noise. They stopped engaging in the conversations. They stopped laughing at the jabs. They distanced themselves, not just from the people, but from the energy that once made it easy to misjudge you. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't loud. It was sacred. They were shedding their skin. God began whispering louder, guiding them away from codependence and closer to discernment. They started trusting their intuition again. And when they looked inward, really looked, they realized something had been buried beneath the surface. This entire time, a deep, almost sacred sense of knowing when it came to you, a resonance that had been ignored, denied, pushed down beneath layers of manipulation and noise. They began questioning everything, especially the versions of you they were fed. And every time they questioned it, their heart answered with truth. You weren't cold, you were cautious, you weren't manipulative, you were strategic, you weren't detached, you were protecting your peace. And suddenly, the puzzle pieces started falling into place, not because someone handed them the truth, but because their soul started rejecting the lie. This awakening came with grief, the grief of lost time, of knowing they had participated in your defamation, even passively. But also the grief of realizing that the people they trusted never really had their best interests at heart. Cutting those ties was painful, but it was necessary. They couldn't carry those voices and find their way back to you. This part of their journey had to be walked alone, with humility, and with the intention to finally see you through their own eyes. And now, in the silence left behind by all that separation, a deeper truth is rising. Not just about you, but about themselves, the kind of person they want to be, the kind of energy they want to honor, and most importantly, the kind of love they now realize they were never supposed to fear. They didn't know it yet, but the entire time they were unraveling, so were you. While they battled the voices of others, you battled silence. While they questioned whether you were real, you questioned whether anyone ever truly saw you. You and this person were mirroring each other in ways neither of you could see, but God did. God had been watching, weaving synchronicities, dropping signs, orchestrating divine timing. What felt like distance was protection. What felt like rejection was redirection. You weren't enemies, you were reflections, two souls awakening through distortion. You started pulling back, not out of malice, but out of self-preservation. You could feel the eyes, the assumptions, the shifting energy around your name. Your intuition screamed louder than their silence. It told you something wasn't clean. It told you someone was projecting onto you, crafting fantasies and fears they never had the courage to speak out loud. And yet, despite your caution, there was a quiet ache, a spiritual paranoia that crept in at night. Can I trust anyone? Is love always going to feel like danger? God held you through those questions, because the answer was already unfolding. On their side, paranoia grew in a different shape. Every time they thought of reaching out, a wave of shame crashed over them. Every time your name crossed their mind, a new memory surfaced of what they heard, of what they believed, of how they let someone else's voice speak louder than yours. They feared your power because they didn't understand it. They feared your silence because they hadn't earned your truth. But beneath that fear was reverence. They were beginning to feel what was always true. Your energy was never meant to be deciphered by gossip. It was meant to be experienced firsthand. God began using the discomfort as medicine. The ache became the mirror. They started seeing how their fears mirrored yours. You, always alert for betrayal. Them, terrified of vulnerability. You, wounded by being misread. Them, scared to be seen. It was never just about attraction. It was about evolution. Your connection wasn't ordinary. It was designed to burn away illusion, to break both of you out of your old patterns, to force clarity through chaos. This wasn't punishment. It was alchemy, a divine recalibration. You were both being stripped of false beliefs, old wounds, and karmic noise. God was removing everyone who couldn't honor the connection. Every betrayal, every misstep, every hesitation, it was all leading to a deeper alignment. Because the love between you two wasn't built in words. It was born in energy, and no amount of distortion could kill what was protected by divine timing. Now the paranoia is shifting. It's becoming peace. It's becoming truth. God is healing both of you. Not by giving you back what was lost, but by preparing you to hold what's coming. And in that preparation, the bond is growing. Quietly, powerfully, in ways neither of you fully understand yet, but both of you feel. They didn't expect it to go this deep. What started as curiosity evolved into longing. What began with judgment turned into craving, and now they can't shake the weight of it. The way your energy lingers like a scent on clothing, like a song stuck in their head. You haunt them, not in a cruel way, but in the way truth does when it's been ignored for too long. They find themselves wondering what it would have felt like to really know you, not through rumor, not through fantasy, but through real connection, through presence, through truth. They spend their quiet hours replaying moments that never happened, imagining conversations they wish they'd had, touches never shared, words never spoken. And still, they don't know how to approach you. There's a wall now, built by their silence and your boundaries. They want to say, please open up to me, but shame holds their tongue hostage. Because how do you ask for access after you've misread someone's soul? How do you come forward when you know you let others speak for you? What they feel isn't lust, it's deeper. It's the kind of pull that makes their chest ache. The kind that has them staring at your photos longer than they should. The kind that has them sensing your energy in crowded rooms, even when you're not there. They're scared you've shut them out completely, scared that the story has already ended, before it had a chance to begin. And yet they can't let go. They realize now that what they projected onto you were their own fears, their own wounds, their own distorted reflections. You weren't cold, they were scared of warmth. You weren't intimidating. They were afraid of what they might feel in your presence. They wore armor and called it discernment. They confused your grace for a trap because they'd never seen love held with that kind of power. God is showing them moment by moment how wrong they were. And that clarity is beautiful, but it's also unbearable, because now they know what they lost access to. Not just a connection, but a version of themselves they could have discovered through knowing you. You represented something holy, something raw, something transformative, and instead of honoring it, they kept it at a distance. Now their fantasy has teeth. It bites with regret. It whispers, you could have had this if you had trusted your own heart. They're no longer consumed by the desire to possess you. They're consumed by the desire to be seen by you, to be known in a way that isn't filtered through shame, to show you that behind the silence and missteps, there is depth, there is sincerity, and there is love. But for now, they stay quiet, not because they don't care, but because they care too much and have no idea how to rebuild what they never had the courage to claim. This connection was never about possession. It was about transformation. From the beginning, God carved a path not of comfort, but of truth, brutal, beautiful, and unflinching. Every delay, every miscommunication, every moment of misjudgment was divinely allowed to force growth. They are learning that love isn't just about who you desire, it's about who you become in the presence of that desire. And you, without even knowing it, have been their greatest teacher. God is showing them how to let go of control, to stop micromanaging every emotional impulse and instead surrender to divine flow. They used to protect their heart by staying detached, by hiding behind logic and the opinions of others. But that armor is cracking. Their soul is waking up to something ancient and sacred, that not all connections are meant to be safe. Some are meant to dismantle you and rebuild you closer to who you truly are. This connection was never about possession. It was about transformation. From the beginning, God carved a path not of comfort, but of truth, brutal, beautiful, and unflinching. Every delay, every miscommunication, every moment of misjudgment was divinely allowed to force growth. They are learning that love isn't just about who you desire, it's about who you become in the presence of that desire. And you, without even knowing it, have been their greatest teacher. God is showing them how to let go of control, to stop micromanaging every emotional impulse and instead surrender to divine flow. They used to protect their heart by staying detached, by hiding behind logic and the opinions of others. But that armor is cracking. Their soul is waking up to something ancient and sacred, that not all connections are meant to be safe. Some are meant to dismantle you and rebuild you closer to who you truly are. They are being taught how to trust, not people, not circumstances, but divine timing. The lesson isn't about chasing you, it's about becoming the version of themselves that is aligned with what you deserve. Because God isn't just protecting you from them, He's protecting the connection from their unhealed parts. They're learning that love without alignment is chaos. And chaos is what they brought to your door before they knew how to carry clarity. At the same time, God is working through you, teaching you how to remain magnetic without overexerting, how to let your energy speak louder than explanation. You don't have to defend your name. You don't have to correct their false narratives. Your stillness is your shield. You're learning that what's meant for you doesn't need convincing. It will recognize you in the silence. It will return with reverence, not excuses. This dynamic is a divine classroom. The tests are karmic, but the outcome is sacred. You are both being refined, not as punishment, but as preparation. You are being shown what it means to love without losing yourself, to stay open without being porous, to remain soft without being broken. No amount of gossip, interference, or delay can touch what is protected by God. This isn't karmic. This isn't codependent. This is soul deep. The lessons are hard because the connection is rare, and God knows you both have the potential to hold it once you stop trying to control it. They are beginning to understand this isn't about getting back what was lost. It's about becoming someone worthy of what's destined. And you're not waiting. You're aligning. You're trusting. You're rising. And as you do, God makes one truth clear. What's meant for you will not require you to chase, perform, or shrink. It will arrive fully aware, fully healed, and fully ready. There's no denying it anymore. Not even they can run from the signs. Your name shows up in places it shouldn't. Songs echo the words they never said. Dreams carry your face, your voice, your energy. God isn't whispering, it's shouting. What once felt like a coincidence now feels sacred. Divine timing has woven itself into every part of their reality, and it all points back to you. They used to doubt the spiritual. Now they cling to it like oxygen, because it's the only thing that makes sense in the chaos they've created. They see now that God didn't bring you into their life to test their ego. God brought you to awaken their soul, to strip away every illusion they clung to show them what alignment feels like and what it costs when they reject it. You weren't a detour, you were the path. But they ignored the signs, chose fear, chose pride, chose comfort. And now they're kneeling at the altar of that realization, praying they haven't forfeited what was always meant to be sacred. The fog is lifting. Every lie, every projection, every twisted perception is unraveling. And what's left is you, unshaken, untouched, standing in your own power. They see you now, not as a fantasy, not as a threat, but as the truth, the soul. God sent to remind them of who they are, of what love looks like when it's not diluted by ego or corrupted by control. They feel called, not by obsession, not by loneliness, but by destiny. It's louder than logic, stronger than shame. They've begun to protect the vision of you, not just in their mind, but in their choices. They no longer entertain the voices that once distorted your name. They no longer tolerate the energy that made them question your worth. There's a quiet reverence building in their spirit, a deep respect for the divine orchestration at play. They no longer ask if it's real, they ask if they're ready. And God, in infinite wisdom, is not giving them shortcuts. God is asking them to rise, to rebuild, to reconnect not just with you, but with themselves. Because this isn't about possession, it's about purpose. You were brought into their awareness, not to fill a void, but to activate healing. And that healing is what leads to union. This isn't about chasing fate, it's about becoming aligned with it. God's hand is steady, holding both of you through every detour. And now, what was once clouded in doubt is becoming a sacred vision, a destined union. Not one born from fantasy, but one forged through fire, truth, and divine design. They don't just want you, they want to be ready for you. God keeps speaking, repeating patterns, aligned numbers, unexpected encounters, messages in dreams. Maybe you've seen them too. Maybe you've felt the energetic shift without logic. That's not coincidence, that's confirmation. This connection is not karmic, it's a soul contract awakening through divine timing. The chaos, the silence, the misjudgments, they weren't punishments, they were divine calibration. God confirms what was meant to tear you apart only anchored the bond. Deeper, you both had to be broken, humbled, and refined through truth. You both had to learn how to hear God's voice above the noise before you could ever recognize each other through love. This wasn't about pain, it was about purpose. Now, the path is opening. Slowly, righteously, through divine alignment. You'll feel it when it's time, not in your mind, but in your soul. Until then, stay rooted in who you are. Stay magnetic. Stay in trust.